Hello everyone, my name is Helga and you're on my anime channel. The 2022 anime season is coming to an end and I've decided to share with you what anime series I have been watching as well as how I would rate them. I've divided them into groups based on their genres so that it will be easier for you to follow me in this video. Without further ado, let's go! The first group that I'm going to talk about is Slice of Life / Romance. I have been watching 5 titles in this genre, the first of which is aharen-san. I actually finished watching it yesterday, and I'm in love with this anime. It's about 2 high schoolers who are not very sociable but want to make friends, so they end up becoming friends with each other. I like how cute and imaginative the main characters are, and of course their relationship dynamics. While watching this anime, I kept thinking about how healthy this relationship was, because we often have to deal with toxic main leads, especially in romance, but it's not the case here at all. So my ranking for this anime is a 10 out of 10. And talking about toxic, there is a title in this season that has 2 male leads who match this description. It's called Heroines Run the Show, The Unpopular Girl, and The Secret Task. It's about an ordinary but very driven girl who becomes an assistant manager of 2 arrogant idols. As I've mentioned, the relationship between the main characters is pretty toxic, especially at the beginning. But if you can deal with it, I think you might actually enjoy this show. I personally like how non-linear the plot is because it doesn't follow the ordinary tropes of the genre. That's why I would give it a 7 out of 10, maybe even an 8 because of its opening song. It's kinda silly but very catchy. I think it's one of the best opening themes of this season. Next on my list is the Daimon Recipe for Happiness. I found that the word daimon is used to describe food, the ingredients of which complement each other in the Kyoto dialect. So the main events of the story happen at a candy store in Kyoto. This anime touches upon such topics as family and traditional Japanese culture, and I personally really like the latter aspect of it. I enjoy how much you can learn about traditional Japanese food and celebrations from this anime, so I will give it a solid 7 out of 10. Next we have Shikimori's Not Just a Cutie, which talks about a boy plagued by bad luck who has a cute and popular girlfriend. However, as you could guess from the title, his girlfriend is not just a cutie because she is always ready to protect the main character from his misfortunes and does it very successfully. For me, this anime is maybe a 6 out of 10 because it doesn't bring anything new to the genre in my opinion, and I sometimes get bored by it. And I also don't agree that Shikimori is a good contender for Marin Kitagawa from My Dress Up Darling for the Best Girl of the Year nomination. In my opinion, Marin is a much more interesting and likable character. And the last anime in the slice of life genre that I'm watching is A Couple of Cuckoos. This one will actually continue airing next season, so it's hard to give it my final ranking right now. But if I had to, it would probably be a 7 out of 10. I need to admit that I'm a sucker for the arranged marriage trope, so I was anticipating this series from the moment I heard about it. But unfortunately, I can't say that I'm satisfied with how it plays out in the story. However, I can say that I like the animation style and the ending theme very much, so probably it will live up to my expectations next season. The next category that I would like to talk about is Isekai, and the first title on my list is Skeleton Knight in Another World. I started watching this anime after I'd found out that Pelik would sing the opening for it. If you somehow don't know who this is, Pelik is a famous YouTuber who makes anime song covers. By the way, I also released an anime opening song cover on this channel a couple of weeks ago. It's the opening theme to Tokyo Revengers. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please do so. I worked really hard on it. So of course I was very happy to hear the news that a Japanese production company decided to hire a foreigner to sing an opening for an anime, especially in Japanese. And the the anime itself turned out to be quite entertaining. I especially like Ponta, a mystical creature which is kind of a familiar of the main character. In general, I would rate it as a 6 out of 10. The next show that I'd like to talk about is called Trapped in a Dating Sim. The world of otome games is hard for mobs. I will say right away that this is one of my most favorite titles of this season. The concept of it is not new, however, the delivery is very interesting. The main character is a guy who was playing an otome game on behalf of his sister and hated the main leads of it. However, after falling off a ladder, he reincarnated in the same game as a mob character. So when he met the main leads of the game, he wanted to teach them a lesson. I personally really like how cynical this guy is, and that he is not your typical Isekai character. Although he always tries to help people he made friends with, he also doesn't shy away from showing the opponents his superiority. This series is also an unusual mix of genres such as fantasy and mecha, and this is what I like it for. So I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'm also watching the second season of The Rising of the Shield Hero and quite enjoying it. I think the new characters brought something fresh to the series so it didn't become too repetitive. It's a solid 7 out of 10 at the moment, in my opinion. The next series on my list can also be considered isekai because there are some characters who get into a fantasy world from Japan. However, it's not the main theme of this anime, so it can also be considered fantasy. It's called The Executioner and Her Way of Life. And it's hard not to spoil this anime by talking about the events that happen in it, so I'll avoid doing this and just tell you my opinion on it. I find some twists of the series unexpected, but honestly, it's not my cup of tea. I sometimes get bored when watching it and annoyed by characters' motivations. So for me, it's a 5 out of 10. And the final show in this category is a very famous reverse isekai called Your Boy Kunming. I think most of you know about this series because of its opening, which is definitely a banger. But I started watching it right when it began airing and was actually surprised to hear this song because I recognized it. I understood that it was a European hit from the 2010s, I guess. But the Japanese language fits the song very well and it definitely made it sound fresh and more modern. And I also like the dance that they animated for the opening. Talking about the anime itself, it's a music title which includes some historical events reimaginings, which is interesting by itself, but the characters are also fascinating to follow and root for, so I will give it a 9 out of 10. The next category on my list is pure fantasy, and there is only one fantasy series that I'm watching this season called I'm Quitting Heroine. It's about a hero of a human world who decides to stop protecting it. And I'm not a big fan of this show. I think I will give it a 5 out of 10 after finishing it. But all three anime titles that I'm gonna be talking about now are the ones that I have been really enjoying this season. However, they don't match any of the previous categories, that's why I've decided to talk about them separately. And probably you already guessed that one of them is Spy Family. It's a very famous comedy action series about a spy who has to get a wife and a child in order to complete his task undercover. This series is full of plot conveniences and over-the-top humor, but I guess this is what it's supposed to be. And although I can't say that I'm the biggest fan of this series, it keeps me entertained, and also based on its quality, I think it deserves an 8 out of 10. And now let's talk probably about two of my most favorite anime titles of this season, starting with the one which is going to continue in the summer, called Summertime Render. It's a time travel mystery thriller, a genre that I really enjoy, and it also has a cool setting, which is an island in the south of Japan. The main character of the show comes to his hometown for the funeral of his stepsister and discovers weird events that are happening there. If this sounds intriguing to you, definitely give it a watch if you haven't yet. It's too early to rate it properly, but if I had to do it now, I would probably give it a 9 or even a 10 out of 10. And last but not least is Tomodachi Game. It's a psychological thriller about a group of friends who get into a high-stakes game and try to figure out who the traitor is. This idea is definitely not new, but its portrayal in this anime keeps me intrigued each episode. Actually, I was so intrigued that I even watched the live-action adaptation of the manga that the anime is based on. And unexpectedly, I really liked the live drama too. We all know how infamous Japanese live-action adaptations are, but this one turned out to be better than I expected. Although maybe it's because the two main male leads are played by my favorite Japanese actors. Anyway, I haven't spoiled the ending for myself because the drama finished earlier than the manga and the manga is still ongoing. So they had to make up their own ending for the drama as far as I understand. That's why it's still interesting for me to continue watching the anime. And now I'm planning on giving it a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Share your opinions about all the shows that you have seen from my list in the comments below. It's probably my last video before moving to Japan, so look forward to my next one from Tokyo. If you are looking forward to it, give this one a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and click the little bell icon to get all the notifications about when I post my new anime related content. Hope to see you all soon. Bye!